experiences and daily use of Excel is very different. Some of us are in it all the time. Some of us are in it very sparingly. So we had a couple more people yesterday, so we were able to kind of share some things outside of the things I talked about. So certainly if there's something that you don't see me do that you feel like might be something that's beneficial, we can talk about that. I am putting it out there, but I am by no means an expert in Excel. I would not consider myself an expert at all in this program. I consider myself not a novice either, but I am certainly somewhere in between. So what I'm showing you is what I know. Obviously, there's a whole lot more out there. And because it's such a widely used tool, it is very Google friendly. But as we discussed yesterday, you don't know what you don't know. So it's kind of hard to say, like, I want to be able to do this if you don't really know if it does that. So hopefully some of the things we see today help you in your everyday processes and you walk away with a few things that might make you a little bit more productive. Okay? Two things. We're going to kind of work in two different places. If you open a browser, you can type in your Google search, sample Excel sheet, and then this nice link comes up right here from Microsoft, which is a great Excel sheet. It has a whole bunch of fields in it, a whole bunch of columns, and we're going to take a look at that a little bit. So I think the name of this is Financial Sample, and you see that we get a whole sheet like that.
My God, that's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, and kind of it looks like a lot of the sheets that float around this building. Even though, you know, you and I, meaning you and I, Donna and John, don't see these every day, this is what Tracy and the admin assistants are looking at constantly, right? Tracking student records, tracking data, tracking budgets, all that stuff. This is a pretty big sheet, right? So here I am up here in the top right-hand corner by default. And let's say, because this is such a big sheet, I want to go all the way to the right or all the way to the left. I can certainly use my mouse to do that navigation, and I can scroll till I get all the way to the last row. But something with, in this case, that has 700 rows takes a whole lot of scrolling. So again, when we first open the sheet, we're here in the top corner. Nice little quick trick. Hold down your control key and use your arrows, left, right, top, bottom, and that sends you to the far quadrants of the sheet. So I no longer have to scroll all the way down to 700. I can hit control and hit my down arrow, and all of a sudden my cursor is down at 701. So if I need to add another row to my sheet, I can jump all the way to the bottom. If I want to go all the way back up top, again, I'm just holding control and going right back up to the top of my sheet. So just a quick navigation to the far quadrants of the sheet, right? Obviously, if you have 4 pieces of data here in this little corner, that trick's not necessary. But when you're working with something so large, that shift or that control and arrow key lets you navigate a little bit easier. So Ray, I got all the way down here to my bottom row of 700, and thankfully I still have my titles up here to know what I'm looking at. That doesn't always exist there. So here, what's happening is this row is selected, and in your view, this pane is frozen. Meaning when you scroll the sheet, the top row stays the top row no matter where you are. So what they did was freeze top row. So no matter where I scroll on my paper, that top row stays exactly in 1, right? You can always keep that top row. And really, you can do a whole selection. So if you're doing kind of a comparison of data and you have, maybe you want to compare stuff from the top or the bottom, and it's kind of a sequential thing, you can always highlight what you want to see and do freeze panes. And let me unfreeze my top row. And now I can freeze that whole section. And now when I scroll, that whole top piece stays where I am. Good if you kind of have multiple headings, or if you have longer headings, if those boxes are bigger, it gives you more of an area to kind of plant there. Kind of think of putting a thumbtack in it, right? It's saying exactly where it is. Does that make sense? That's easy enough, right? So another great feature here, because this sheet is so big, is your columns have a filter on them. So you'll notice that when you look here in your segments or your countries, I have a whole bunch of different countries. But what if I only wanted to see the United States of America? If I click in my column where the arrow is, I'm currently seeing everything, right? I'm going to unselect all and just do United States of America. And now I only get that data. And what's really helpful here is not only do you only get that data, you get that data in its original row. So it's not moving things around on you. Now you can still say, if I'm talking to someone on the phone or I'm working with someone on a sheet, I can say that row 105 for me, even though I was able to filter by the country, row 105 for me is the same thing as row 105 for you if you're looking at the whole entire sheet. So it keeps those original numbers there and allows me to kind of see my clusters. Now, really, there's no back-end work here, okay? If you just go and jump over to a regular blank Excel sheet, right? And here I put, let's say we're doing a nice little survey of everybody's favorite animal. Tracy, what's your favorite animal? Give me one anyway. Make it up.
A lion.
A lion.
Bird.
A bird. John, what's your favorite animal? Dolphin. Now notice,
A dog.
say it again.
A dog.
Oh, a dog, good. Okay, dog. Okay, as I'm entering Excel, very smart. Someone else likes a lion, it sees that. All I did was type the L. I'm just hitting enter, moving on to lion. Someone else likes a bird, perfect. Someone else likes a dolphin, awesome. Oh, I didn't get my dolphin there. We have to wait for it to appear. I got a little quick there. Dolphin, awesome. Lion, awesome. Here's my favorite animal. I have my first cell highlighted. I'm just going to data, filter. That's it. It just looks at the column itself. Now when I click on my little arrow, I can filter by the choices that are already in there. Okay, so again, allows you to consolidate by those individual choices. Here you can see that your favorite animal gets cut off because my cell A is its original length. You can always hold your cursor on A and slide over to the end of the L to make sure you get everything.
You can also double click.
There you go. Nice work, Trace. That's where I was going next. You go to the end of A, double click, and it automatically does that for you. Okay, so rather than going through and resizing, saves you a little bit of time there. And then, of course, if you bring this right back, and I have everything highlighted, I just clicked all the way on the top left. As I adjust, that adjusts every cell and every column because I have the whole sheet highlighted. So you notice every square got to the same size.
I always like those separate. And then-
Yeah, that's tough. So here I just click in the far top left so it selects everything. And then as I adjust the first one, everything adjusts accordingly to the first one. So that's a whole sheet select there. Now, because this was open-ended, we were able to really just say whatever we wanted here. But if this was a whole bunch of people and I wanted to kind of narrow it a little bit more, right? All I would do is take my list that's right here and I can kind of turn this into a multiple choice. Right? And by that, I mean, when I click on the cell, I'm going to get the option to say which one of these I like, as opposed to me actually typing the text. So let's look at how we do that. So I'm going to have here my list options. Let's just say I use those four because the rest are duplicate here. Okay, so there are my list options. I'm going to go over to data and data validation. And inside of allow, I'm going to change that to a list because I'm making a list. Okay, and where is that list coming from? Where is the data? This is where my list is coming from. So all I need to do is click on my little symbol here and highlight those 4. Right, you'll see that it sees block A2 and through A5. It's doing the absolute values of those. And I can say, okay. Now, I not only have an arrow here to filter, when I click on my block, I have 4 choices to choose from. If I try and change this to something outside of that, like cat. Oh, it let me do that. It didn't let me do it yesterday. Oh, maybe because I changed the top one. Hold on, let's try this. Dog. Holy shnikes. Dog, bird. How about we do this? Ooh, it's jumping all over on me now. I think because I made my list on top of my list. Was that my problem there, Trace? I think so. Let's try that again. Let's do it over here on the side. Dog, bird, dolphin, lion. I'm going to click on the cell where I want that list to appear, right? When I did this the first time, I clicked on something that already had data in the box, as opposed to clicking on a blank cell. So again, I'm on a blank cell. I'm doing data validation. I'm doing list. I'm saying that these are my 4 choices that I want to be able to choose from. And I do OK. So now in these cells, the only choices I have are these 4. I could say dog here. I can try and say cat here, but it won't let me do that because these are my only 4 choices. Not really necessary for your own stuff, but if you're working collaboratively with people, and let's say we thought about this yesterday, probably the best case scenario for this in our school is all of the different degrees and certificates we have. And some people might type PhD, P, capital P, lowercase h, capital D. Some people like to put the periods in. Some people like to do master's M.A, or they might have a master's of science M.S, period. So there's kind of stuff all over the place. But when you're looking at that, you kind of want it to be the nomenclature to be the same across the board. I want my PhD on paper to look the same as someone else's PhD on the paper. We shouldn't have different capital letters, different periods, things like that. So I thought this would be a good case for that. If you have a column that just reads degrees, now the only degrees I can put are what appear in my list. I can't make up my own way for the PhD to look. I can't make up my own way for the master's certificate to look. So it only allows me to do that validated data inside of that list. So that would be a good use if you're worrying about maybe separate sections of a class, right? Instead of typing out all those sections of class, you have all the sections of JERO. You can put those sections of JERO there in a drop-down list to categorize each one of those classes, as opposed to them going through and typing each one, or someone typing a wrong letter that isn't even one of the sections, right? Kind of limits our entrance there. Does that make sense? All right, so that's a good feature. I like that one. What's also good here, because we're in an updated version of this, is let me get my dog back over here. When you highlight any piece of text inside of, or any part of a list inside of Excel sheet, you get this little square down here at the bottom, which is the quick analysis tool. And the quick analysis tool gives you all of these little options instead of finding them up here in the toolbar. And one of the great things here is you can come in here and make a chart, right, real quick. I want to know how many people graduated that year. I want to know how many people have 27 credits currently, or I want to know how many people have a failing grade. I can kind of just do a quick analysis of one column rather than trying to group all that together. I get a quick view of what's going on there. I'm just hitting delete here.
What I saw, it doesn't matter if you're like dog, in one place you have it all lowercase and then the other you have it uppercase. It doesn't matter. It will still recognize.
It should still recognize the nomenclature. And it's a little weird because I could always take, like let's say we work with student names all the time, right? So if my name appears on a report, my cap locks is on. Make my column a little bit. If my name reports as Andrew Boble, this isn't necessarily the right way you would write someone's name. So here, great feature inside of this is I can always do my equal sign, do the word proper, because I'm looking for this to be typed correctly. It sees it as a name. So I didn't retype this. It's all Andrew is capitalized, Boble is capitalized, right? And same thing. If I make some kind of report or I have name, first and last name in the same cell here, I want first name, last name. You have 35 kids, it's going to take a whole lot of time to clean up to make your two separate cells. It takes way too much time. So all I'm going to do is come over here, click on this, and click on text to columns. It sees Andrew Boble. I'm going to do delimited. I am separated here, in this case, by a space, right? There's only a space in between Andrew and Boble. If you had a comma, you could separate your commas. If you had a semicolon, you separate your semicolons. But here I'm just separating Andrew Boble, doing next, finish, and now it moved it over for me. Rather than taking time to delete it from one column and add it to another, I'm just taking the text that's in a particular column and moving it to another by using my text to columns feature there. Does that make sense? I thought that was really good because when we normally do an export in Canvas, at the beginning of the year for Dawn for ExamSoft. Basically, everyone has to do this. But the export from Canvas gives you the students' names all back to back. So you have to clean it up a little bit. If it lets me get in there. So the best way to do that is go into grades and then come over here to export CSV file. It's important to know that a CSV file does not hold your formatting. So you need to come up here and do File, Save As, and change this from a comma delimited file, CSV, to just a regular Excel workbook. So then that way, whatever I do in here, it saves for me. So I'm gonna double click on A so I get some bigger widths. Double click on D so I get some bigger widths. I'm gonna delete my test student here. And really, I don't need any of this for Dawn. This is all my grades. So none of this needs to go to her. But now here again, look at your students. First name, comma, last name. I want those separated. So I need to make sure that I have a separate column here next to it to put that data. Because if I go into my text, the thing is going to say, hey, something else is here. Do you want me to put it on top of the numbers? Do you want me to get rid of the numbers? So go in, insert your row first, highlight your row or highlight your data, and do your data text to columns. In this case, I'm still delimited, but instead of being separated by a space this time, now I'm separated by a comma.
Looks like a comma and a space. Is that going to matter?
No, it just looks at the first one. So I think in that case, the comma's first. And we'll just hit next. and finish.
Cool.
And now I get everything in my 2 rows. And now I can do student first name or student last name, student first name. Does that make sense?
Is that what she usually needs? That I never
Yeah.
sent her anything.
Yeah, that's usually what she needs. She needs student number or student names, ID numbers, and usually email addresses. And you can see that even the email addresses only come with the front end of it. So really what I do here is I go in and do your @Widener. And I don't think I have that one. Yeah, I didn't put that one on my sheet, but there is a formula to put in that will follow the same nomenclature all the way down, so you don't have to type @Widener 15 times. You tell it to refer to @Widener
Hey, Andrew.
down. Yeah.
When we do the text to columns, is it only last name first and first name second, or you could do the opposite?
It really depends on the how your export came. So in this case, it was last name, first name. So your first column becomes the last name, your second column becomes the first name. But if you need it vice versa, then you can always just take this column, copy it, put it here first, take this column, copy it, put it here second.
Oh, okay.
So in that case, I just reverse the data.
Okay.
Okay? And really, I did the Control C and V, but you can always just hold down on this and drag it over. It'll move the data to the other column.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem.
Or you can just add a column to the first one and then move the first names over.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Instead of going all the way to the end of the sheet, I could just add a column to the left, and then that way I'm only moving one thing as opposed to copying and pasting both. That's right. Those are good points, Trace. I like that. All right, easy enough there? All right, good. If we look at this data here, we can see, I'm going to delete this and know that, let's change this to student last name. Student first name. Sometimes our viewing of the table isn't ideal in the way that you originally set up the rows and columns, right? So here in this case, my top row here, I'm gonna freeze so that it stays where it is. I'm gonna delete my empty one here. And I'll freeze my top row. So again, I go to View and freeze top row so that that stays where it is. I can also do, where am I? If I do all of my data here and copy it, and then come over to a blank area of my page and do paste special, if I hit my transpose option here, it'll reverse my columns and rows. So as opposed to being top to bottom, right, I made it longitudinal wise there. Not always necessary, but sometimes when you look at it, it might be too long, it might look better wide. It kind of depends on how much data you have here for your actual headings. But again, as opposed to recreating the wheel and retyping all of that, Excel can just take what you have, and the transpose feature just switches your columns and rows to be able to do vice versa there. Does that make sense? All right. Let's see, what else do we got?
Andrew, I have one other question.
Go ahead, John.
When you do the freezing pane, freeze pane, the top one,
Yeah.
does it help with the printing? When you print, the second page, for example, will have the headings or not really?
You still have to tell it to have the heading. So when you do file print
Okay.
and you come into, I think it's in scaling, or actually, no, actually it's not. It's in, where are we at here? Page layout, headings, print.
Oh, I see.
So then that way you're right. If you have multiple pages of data, the second page will still have your column headings at the top of the second page.
Awesome. All right.
Same thing with the grid lines. For some reason, the grid lines to print is not defaulted. But
Okay.
print something out, it helps with the eye
Yes.
grid lines there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. A really great tool, I think, in here, especially for our visual people, is let's say that we were talking about the grades in this class, and this was a test that I gave to these students. So let's say 85, 63, 95, 45, 68, 89, 52, 28, 100, 90. It's crazy how the light just went out. I guess I'm not moving long enough. If again, here's my test one. Here are my numbers. Here's my quick analysis. It does this when it sees numbers. You can color code these to kind of give you a quick visual of who did well and who didn't. Okay. Also, you can always do, instead of the color code, have a data bar behind it. And it kind of gives you a full representation. See your 100, your blue bar goes all the way to the end. And your 25, just a little schnurly there. So it gives you a little bit better representation. We used to get presented our reports like this when I was in the classroom, and we would talk about like the overall math test for the whole year. And there's just so many skills that are tested on that. That's how they gave you a representation of the whole class. They would say you're this close to proficient or this close to mastery, depending on the skill. And it meant a lot more than just having the number, right? Especially if this is a whole sheet of something. Like, I want a good visual representation of what's happening in the class. Do I have a whole lot of people that are in trouble, or do I have a whole lot of people that just need a little bit more work? And of course, we can always take this and come to our home and sort this from smallest to largest. It's always going to ask you if you want to expand. And that's saying, do you want to take the number that's associated with this name and move it with the sort? Or do you only want me to sort this one column? I would say 98% of the time, you want all the data to move together. So you keep that on your entire selection sort. And now I get a really good visual representation of, I got half of my class that's just fine and the other half that's struggling. And really probably 4 there that need a whole lot of help, right? So Canvas, great tool book, right? Gives you all of that electronically, but all I did here was I exported my gradebook. So all of this data already exists in your class, but you can kind of add another little touch for advising times, midterms, finals, end of the year, to give you a better representation of what's going on, whole picture. Or maybe you're analyzing what you're giving in class. Which quiz didn't go well? Which quiz did everyone not do good on? I'm going to need a good visual of all of that side by side to be able to find that data. So this can kind of help you in that, rather than just looking at the raw data numbers, a good visual representation there. Okay, I can always, again, there's so many tools in this quick analysis. I can always take my chart here and see where my scores are. I can get a good line graph. I can get a good scatter plot. I can take it and kind of make it its much wider table, and see it took it from my test one and made it its own table here. So a whole bunch of stuff you can do by just using that bottom quick analysis there. I really love the color coding personally, just because I feel like we have so many numbers in front of us all the time. A lot of those I feel like lose meaning in the whole picture. especially when you have a student struggling as an advisor. You want to try and find the positives before you start addressing all those negatives. And that will kind of give you a good representation of, wow, you're doing really good here, but we're struggling up here. So how can we take the skills that we're being successful with here and apply it to those places where we need a little bit more remediation, kind of build off the positive. And I think especially for the students, again, it's hard for them to find the positive. So if you show them something like this where they can see a whole bunch of areas where they're in green and maybe just a little bit where they need to improve in red, it gives them a little bit better of an understanding of what they're looking at too. So I think for you as the instructor, and certainly for the student who might be extremely overwhelmed with their academic studies, kind of gives them a better representation of success and places where we could get a little bit better. Easy enough? Very good. I like that. If for some reason Sue was in here yesterday and we found out that she had Office 2009 or something like that, 3 versions before where we are now. We have 2016 available in-house. So if you open Excel and for some reason you don't have 2016, shoot me an email. I'll come to your office and upgrade it for you. Okay, it doesn't hurt anything, just takes about 20 minutes. I did Sue's this morning, maybe took about a half hour to install, takes all the old Office programs out, puts the new ones in, everything just opens in the new one. And then you get all these kind of updated tools that we're looking at here. To kind of help you with that stuff. All right, that sounds good. I think another good tool here is we're still looking at test number 1. Look all the way down at the bottom here. I don't know if you can see it, but it gives me the average of test number 1 just from highlighting it. I can always put in the formula and say that I need the calculation here of average. Ugh, not save. Just do equals average of these. I did get an error there for some reason. Let's see why. Oh, it didn't select my columns because I didn't put a parentheses. So there's my average again. 70.667, but know that you're getting that right down here in the status bar as well. So I get my average of 70.667. I know that there's 15 being counted here, and it also gives you the sum too, so that you have, if you're just adding up, but obviously.
Same way then you could get median, mode.
Yep, absolutely.
Standard deviation.
Yep, all that. And all of that is function shortcuts in here. So when I'm just doing equals, I'm telling the Excel system that this is what I want in this cell. What's up?
3 square 1 and 5.
Oh, okay. We're almost done anyway. I'm just saying that in this, I just want this cell to equal something. So in this case, let's say I wanted to equal the sum. It sees that you're typing this.
That's so intuitive. And the last time I had something on this, like you had to type in everything like a
Oh yeah.
like a DOS formula. Like
Yeah, we're way past that. So here you are again, here's your sum,
wow.
right? So know that when you click on this, really this box in the system doesn't equal 70.667. It equals the average of F2 through F16. So as you adjust this, or someone comes in and says, oh, I did my remediation, I no longer have a 75, now I have an 80, that adjusts your calculations here. As opposed to going and doing the math manually, then you have to go back and do all the calculations again. So if you use that function key, it's keeping a running total of adjustments in that column. I can't even tell you how many functions there are in here. If you click on your FX in the top here, that's the function key. It shows my most recently used. But when I go to all, this is all the functions. That's, look, there's your z-test right at the bottom. Now, all your functions, statistical functions, data analysis, financial functions. As I was looking at this, I came across one that was Excel for people at home, and it was someone doing their budget. on Excel. So it was like their car payments, everything, and all that stuff's in here. It'll calculate lump sums based on interest. It will do a running total, based on accruing interest, depending on what functions you put into it. So all of those tools are built in here. A lot more than what we would probably need for everyday use. But we have to know that this is what makes the program run behind the scenes. All the admin assistants that are keeping track of this, not only here in this building, but in HR, in payroll, all of that stuff is being done in Excel through all of these different functions. So like I said, we kind of have different levels of exposure to it. I did want to show this real quick because we went over this a little bit yesterday. Maureen brought this up, which was a really good idea, that when we, by default, here, your grid lines and your headings aren't on print. So when I double click those will put us back on print. When I do my print preview, I'm only getting this small area. I didn't even get my test one, so I can't even see what's happening there. So just a couple things. First of all, you don't need margins because it's a sheet. Why do you need a 1/4 inch of space on each side of these? So turn them to narrow. I still don't have everything. Okay, let's see if turning the paper helps. That certainly helped. Okay, now I get a good representation of what happened on quiz 1. And then you could always come in and go a little bit further. You could always do your scaling. Here it won't make a difference because I got everything on one sheet anyway. You can always take your highlighted portion here and say maybe I only want student first name and last name, but I have all this other information on the sheet. In that case, when I do file print, I'm only printing the selection. So even though all that other information's there, maybe I just want a quick class list, or I just want the numbers from what happened on test 1, or I just need student IDs. Just highlight the column and change that to print selection. That's all you'll get on the paper. I was very naive with that. I would always duplicate. If I needed something else, I would go make a whole nother sheet rather than just taking the columns that I need and just printing those columns. And it doesn't even have to be all the way across. Say I just want A and F. I can still do file, print, selection. Didn't want my F there. Let's see if I have to turn it. Still doesn't want my F. Did I not? No, I am selected. Let's see, let's try again. Shift. There we go. That way I only got my E and my F. Maybe they have to be next to each other. What do you think, Trace? Don't know? Let's see. Let's try that again. So if I do D and skip E and do D and F, print. Yeah, it looks like they have to be next to each other. They have to be concurrent. I could see why it's hard for the system to kind of jump that empty space and say you want something all the way over there. So in that case, you could always take these two, right? I have D and F, copy that, and just for the meantime, put it over here and now do print selection. And now they're next to each other. Does that make sense? So I took two columns that weren't, copied those, and then just on a blank sheet of my workbook, or if you have 50 million things, open a whole nother workbook and just paste those real quick so that you can get those two pieces of information. I don't think we have people that display grades, but when I was an undergrad, this is how we displayed grades. It was on the professor's door. Like when you took a test and you went to go check your test grade, it was there by student number and grade. So I'm sure that information existed in some sheet somewhere with a whole bunch of other information. So you have to kind of be able to disseminate that out. Technology these days, you just look online. But that's the way I used to look at my test grades. It was hanging on the door. That's
My
crazy.
days, our name was there with our grade.
Oh, right next to it? Yeah, we weren't that far. Well, and that's the thing, even when I was in undergrad in Bloom, we didn't even have student IDs yet. They were using our socials.
Yeah.
So they would hang social security numbers and test grades on the professor's door. And then we wised up. I think maybe my sophomore year, they gave us a student ID rather than using our social. We used our social all the way through. I mean, anywhere you walk, they were like, what's your social? What's your social? And obviously we know a little bit better these days with identity theft, not to be saying that so much. Let me see if I have anything else. This is about the time we got out yesterday, just because I have a ridiculous amount of stuff on here. I just don't.
See, I never even I'll open files for Excel to look at, but I never really built anything in it. And I just opened our Excel here. There's so many templates here.
Yeah, there's a lot of templates just to get started with.
For everything.
Yeah. I thought another good one yesterday was, say you're keeping track of something in real time and you want to make record that somebody did something on this time and this date. You can always type it, but you can do the current time and date. If you hold Control, Shift, and the semicolon, we get the time, 12:45 p.m.
Control, Shift, and semicolon.
Control, Shift, semicolon. Get the time, 12:45. Now that's this time. So when I come back into this sheet, it's not seeing that I wanted the time input, it's putting the current time. So this is still gonna say 12:45 at 1:45. It's not rolling as the time's rolling. And if I want the date, again, that one's a little bit easier. That's just Control, semicolon. And that'll give me today's current date, 10/31/2019. So again, Control, semicolon. And there are literally hundreds of shortcuts, just keyboard shortcuts for Excel. Not all of them are useful, and really a lot of them aren't useful for what we do on a daily basis. But no, something you can always kind of venture more into. Go ahead, John.
What was the date? I missed the date. I got the time. What was the date?
The date is just Control, semicolon.
Oh, Control, semicolon. Oh, okay.
Yep, Control, semicolon. We did talk about moving columns and rows. Here, notice when I select F, I'm kind of in this plus sign. If I come over and move a little bit more towards the border, it turns to my 4 arrows. That's a system telling me that this row can be moved. So if I wanted to take this row and move it over to G, it just lets me slide it over. So you just have to wait for the cursor to change. So again, look, I'm holding here in just a white arrow or a white plus sign. I move to the bar, I turn to my 4 arrows, I'm ready to move. I can hold down on my mouse and just slide over, and I'll jump that over to E and F. You could always do copy and paste, but just kind of a quick copy and paste there. So let's say that we were creating, this will be the last thing I do here. Let's say that we're creating some kind of schedule for someone, and it's a concurrent schedule. This is what I'm doing today, this is what I'm doing tomorrow, this is what I'm doing the next day. Here I'm at 10/31/2019. The next date here obviously would be 11/1/2019. All you need is 2 pieces of data. Excel's gonna see that. I'm highlighting, I'm dragging down. It gives me every concurrent date for every box I just highlighted. Just by doing that. So again, here I am at 10. I'll be back to my original. It needs 2. If it's just 10/31, watch what happens. If I take this out and it's just 10/31 and I hold and drag, oh, wow, it didn't all do 10/31. That's unusual. I thought it needed 2. Yeah, maybe because I already had the 11/1 there. Let's see if I do 1031 over here. Yeah, I'm learning as you're learning. It's a beautiful thing. 1031, 2019, or 1021 in this case. Hold and drag. Wow. It did do it. It's probably just, it's the date, I guess. It's seeing it as keep on going. And I think it probably will do that with time as well. Say we're doing an hour increment of something. 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock. And again, I'm holding and dragging. It'll give me everything.
Date for the number,
there throughout.
just like a simple number.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like if I just have the number 9 here, it's not going to start counting for me. It's going to give everything 9. See? So you're right. It's a date and time thing.
And then you have to do the fields.
Yeah. So let's see if I do 9 and then 10, the system should see that I'm counting here. Nope. It only does
I
9.
think you have the little thing above it though. You have to have it below, like the 10.
Let's see.
Pull it from the 10.
No, because it's, oh, like this?
Yeah, from the 10.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Nice job. Yeah, I had to have 9 and 10 selected. So it's all the sequential of back to back. So again, it goes all the way down. It'd be good for numbering the students, right? Because you don't always have the numbers on the side. It prints the headers.
I didn't know you can mess around in the field so much.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could like do different things in different sections of the spreadsheet. I
Oh,
thought
and just
once
move
was
it
one
around?
thing, Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess,
It's wide open.
I guess when I learned about this many, many years ago.
Well, that's the way it was. Many, many years ago, you're right. It was drilled into you to stay where you were and do it. But now it's so friendly that you can go, and really once this gets bigger, same thing with your Zoom and Word, we're just down here. So if you need a bigger overall picture, look at how big your spreadsheet is now. Right, I can see where my pages are. That's the first page.
Andrew, how did you do this?
Third page, bottom right-hand corner, there's a zoom in and zoom out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Again, if you're looking at very big picture, remember, we can always use our control arrows here. Control, hi-oh, left, right. Look where it brought me because I zoomed all the way out. All the way down to row 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sees that I was all the way down there already. But even though I'm all the way down in row 1 million, I froze my top pane. So it's still there for me. So I still know exactly what I'm looking at all the way down there. So that's pretty nice. Good feature there. All right. Anything else anybody wants to share?
Andrew, is there any like a tip sheet that I could have?
I have a tip sheet that I'm working off of that I was going to send along with the Zoom video out to everyone. But
Okay.
in all honesty, for me to get ready for this and to prepare some of this content, I typed in Google Excel tips and tricks.
Oh, cool. All right. Sounds good.
Spent a couple hours reading through that stuff, looking at what was on there. So again, because it's so friendly, it's hard because you don't know what you don't know. Like you wouldn't look up like, oh, how do I go in and enter, this data unless you're specifically working on that task. So it's kind of a discovery mission. You kind of go in, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos out there of people doing their top 20 tricks, their top 15 things that they found, advanced stuff, moderate stuff. Another good resource is our LinkedIn Learning that we have through school. They have an Excel class in there that goes from novice, medium, advanced, and kind of works your way up. But again, the advanced stuff is advanced, like kind of out of where we are. Yeah. Is that okay, Jahan?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. I hope to have this stuff out this afternoon. If not, certainly tomorrow, a link to the video and this sheet that I'm working off here. And then, of course, if anybody has any questions individually, just shoot me an email. We can always sit down and look at more, or we can always sit down and work on a specific task or a specific sheet that you already have, a set of data, whatever that might be. I'll be happy to help with that. All right?
I'm just used to working with SPSS and their little,
Yeah. Yeah, staring at the data,
yeah.
for sure. But I think this has come a very long way
Yeah.
than where it was
I'm trying to
prior.
remember when I had my computers in nursing course, it was in the doctoral program, and it probably was 97. So that's how long ago I actually learned Excel, but never really used it other than
Yeah.
opening it and looking.
And
at
putting
it.
things in columns and rows. Yeah. Because that's all it was. Originally, it's just an organization tool.
Right.
But now it's become so advanced with calculations
Yeah,
and analyzing
we
and
were able to do calculations,
Yeah.
but it was like, putting in the
Formula.
formula.
formula, yeah.
So you had to have that list of what's the
Yeah.
formula to get the sum or the mean or the.
We shut this down?
Yeah, you can shut it down. You're good. Log off, shut it down. Perfect.
Fullness.
Yeah, the color coding's my favorite, I would say, out of all
Should we
that.
shut them totally down?
Yeah, you can shut them all the way down. That's perfect. All right, John, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trace. I hope you learned something.
Yeah.
Good.